Intuitive storytelling can be, in my opinion, best understood within the context of the 7 chakras. Let's think of them more as a map than their spiritual tradition, where they come from, the practices and how they're associated. It's more like location, physical location helps me know how I am approaching storytelling by way of my intuition. And the instances in which I would use intuitive storytelling definitely has a spiritual component, but I don't want to confuse this practice with millennia of approaches, understanding, associations with actual religion and spiritual practices. They're distinct. But I have found that the locations of the chakras, the energy centers, very helpful when I go through a process of integrating my intuition with my storytelling. So what are the situations in which I would do that? For me, storytelling is very much a subtle practice. So you can have content prepared, bedtime story, teaching a lesson, giving a keynote, whatever it is. And you can use a variety of storytelling techniques to really deliver a solid story. And when I say story, really it's like I just listed. It could be any instance in which you're talking about something with a particular intent. So the tools of restorative storytelling are very much about the body and voice of the storyteller, and you can learn all of those with the other videos. We are now in a process that is intuitive storytelling, which you could say is using those tools, becoming more confident as a storyteller, using the restorative storytelling tools, becoming more confident, more present, feeling like there's, I can draw from a lot of different personal experiences to be able to really show up and tell a story. And intuitive storytelling uses that foundation to then dip into a wider intelligence beyond my conscious mind. I believe that whether you are calling it your subconscious, whether you are calling it the Akashic record, or the mind of God, or universal wisdom, there is something bigger than us as individuals. I feel like we can all agree on that. Whether or not you believe in God is not the point. The point is there is something bigger, something even higher than this little David. Intuitive storytelling gives you a language, an apparatus, and a translator, a key card to enter into the vault of all that information. Just as individuals, we know that our subconscious has more to tell us than our conscious mind. And when I say the subconscious, brain or mind, I also mean the entire body. There's just neural networks throughout. So we have, just in this little package of David, a lot of information. So if you really just want to stay within that paradigm, you can. These tools will be helpful to help you tap into your subconscious, to tap into the source of your dreams, of your imaginations, all of that, and pull out really rich stuff. If you do believe in, if you have a spiritual practice, if you do believe in a God or gods, something bigger than you are, collective unconscious, all the things that I listed before, it works the same way, to tap into that. And I actually, instead of just going right there, I have a practice that I've been using which does involve each of the chakras. And I'm so practiced now that I just right through. But I think it's important to be able to identify what those are. So in another video, we talked a little bit about root, the root. This is the, specifically in those practices, the perineum, I think is what it's called, but it's like really right at the base of our trunk, right at the tip of our spine, underneath it. And for that is often associated with security and feeling safe. And I think it's really handy for us to know what sort of base instincts we're responding from when we engage in intuitive storytelling. And it often has to do with the foundational things that make us feel unsafe and insecure. And if you really uncover those fears, it can get real fundamental very quickly. And, I have several questions in the mini book about this. I talk about your root complaint, but it could be like your root upset or root outrage or root disturbance, something at the foundation that really can make or break you from a safety and security standpoint. So there's more about that in the other video. In this one, other than that full map, and I'll go through it, I do want to spend a little bit of time on energy. So that's the next one up, is sacral. That's the orange. So red root, orange sacral, and then we go into the the orange sacrum, lower abdomen, higher abdomen, up, stomach area where the dantian is, the energy center in some practices. That's the yellow. And I think of that as the internal storyteller. So what sort of stories make up your reality? Because, the way in which one person takes up, say, the root complaint of feeling like a fraud, I mentioned that in the other video, will be totally different for another person because of the storytellers that make up their reality. So you really just want to be conscious of all the assumptions that you have of what reality is. And that is all in the yellow. So it's when you do a full inventory and understanding of your stories, and then as you're in a restorative storytelling way, connecting with and relating to others, you want to have a sense of what their yellow is, what stories make up their reality. And then you can go up into the heart, and the heart is a pivot point where we go from little old me and all the, insecurities, energy, relationship to energy, and all the stories that make up me, and we pivot into the all that is. So the all that is can still be, the depths and vastness of your subconscious, but I like to think of it as the full-on universe. Or, lately people have been talking about the simulation, the whole code of that, mind of God, universal wisdom, whatever it is, the big thing. And the heart is where the pivot is. And the heart is also a pivot point for different kinds of thinking, from going from cognitive thinking, conscious cognizance, to subconscious or heart thinking, bodily thinking. So it is often this pivot point, the heart. Boom, 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 the rhythmic. So then into the throat chakra, blue, and that for me is the moment in which I reach out to that larger thing. When I speak to the universe, to the ancestors, to my dreams, to the Akashic record, to the big thing. That's when I begin a dialogue in the blue. And then we go to the third eye chakra. The purple is where I actually receive. It becomes literally dialogic, where it's not just me saying, hey, I am afraid of something and I want to deal with this. Can you give me some advice? That would be the blue. And then you receive something back. And often for me, it's dialogic. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's what I find most satisfying, as a experimenter and researcher and practitioner of storytelling. I don't like it necessarily transactional. I like it more dialogic. So the dialogue is engaged through the purple third eye, and then we get to the crown, which for me is that union. It's that feeling of support. It is such a good feeling to feel like you're held. And I like the image of it being actually upside down. So our, the crown, the violet crown chakra is actually underneath us, holding us. So it's like in some pictures of botany, it's like the human being is upside down and that our root ball is right here. And then the world holds it, holds the root, and actually intermingles with it. So if we see ourselves planted in the ground upside down, our head, the violet crown of our head, the root ball is mingling with all the roots and fungal network of the forest. Okay, so there's the kind of map, and we'll be hitting each one of these in several videos. Let's go back to the second, the orange, the sacral, the lower abdomen. And for me, this has to do with resources as a storyteller. So we're taking on big stuff when we're going to our root insecurity. I think whenever we're asking any question of some higher power, it's usually because of some sense of lack of safety and security as an individual, as a person, as someone who protects others as well. So we're going to need resources for that, and you can actually better understand your resources, your personal energy center or sense of energy, what you are operating from, and then actually attract to you what you need. So in the mini book about this part, and in the articles that I write about this particular exercise, we shift from a point of view of quantity to quality. So it's not amount of energy. That tends to be our way of better understanding energy, is how much do I have? I don't have much, I have too much, that kind of thing. But once you start looking into it in a storytelling point of view, it's not amount. It's what energy you're having. The example that I use in the book is tired. Tired is a kind of energy. It's not so much about how much I have. Tired is not a lack of energy. It's an abundance of tired energy. It's a different way of looking at it. So how your body feels and how you're interacting with the world, where you feel lack, where you feel too much, all the sensations, all of it is about you better understanding what energy you're engaging with. So I'll just end this with an exercise that you can do, which is you'll find this throughout restorative storytelling as well as intuitive storytelling. Check in. What's going on for your body physically? Notice the different sensations. And what's going on with the energetics of your body? Notice the different sensations. Home in a particular part of your body. So it could be your throat, could be your belly, could be this finger. What does this finger feel like? And then interrogate what sort of energy is in there. So if I just focus in on this finger, the kind of energy that's in there right now is a little bit tinny, a little bit buzzy, a little bit alert. There's a lot of bugs around me right now, and the wind is keeping them at bay, but when the wind dies off, the bugs arrive. So it's this kind of I am ready to go into action is what's here. So I might be satisfied with that. I might want, to feel that more readily. Or I might want to change it. Let's go into a calm, sort of satisfied energy in my finger, or in my head, or in my shoulders, or in my belly, or in my feet, or whatever. I find it's easier instead of saying my whole body, because there's a lot of different energy in different parts of my body. And when I focus on one part, it's easier for me to change the energy. So if I'm going to go here, then what I'll do is engage my imagination, and I can even tell a story into that particular quality of energy. So I can describe something. Say, for instance, like what I imagine a wombat might feel as it's laying out in the sun in somebody's garden having just eaten a bunch of carrots. And so that, even just describing that is changing the energy in my finger. And then I'll become conscious of what that energy really feels like in my finger physically. And as I become more aware of it and identify with it, it will grow, and it will actually grow throughout my body to different sectors. So there may be an instance where you have an abundance of anxiety energy right before you're about to deliver a speech, or you're feeling fatigue, a certain kind of fatigue before it's bedtime with your kids, or you're feeling sort of confused and wiry before you're about to have an important conversation with somebody and you want to change your energy. You can actually identify where it is in your body, pick that spot, imagine the kind of energy that you would like to welcome into that part of your body, indulge it, and then actually notice that it has arrived, and then let it spread. So I do this all the time, and like I said, it's part of a process where we start in the red, move to orange, and then in the next video, we'll get into this internal storyteller, the yellow, and we can start to play around with seeing the stories that we assume are real are actually quite plastic and interchangeable and adjustable, and therefore so is our reality. That'll be fun. So enjoy playing with your energy. Reach out if you have any questions in the comments, or in through any of the other ways in which you can learn more about this information. You can also go to the mini book section of the website and get your copy of this and start to follow the exercises there. Okay, have fun.